Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my presentation. My name is Amanda Ramirez, and the topic of my presentation today is the Modernist period, 1901 to 1945, and how the changing world impacted this time in literature. The reason that this topic is useful for you is because this period is a very diverse period, and historical impact changes literature. We're going to talk about three things. These are, firstly, what is modernism? Secondly, the historical period. And finally, we're going to look at a hero in literature, To a Farewell to Arms, authored by Ernest Hemingway in the year 1929. Firstly, we'll summarize the literary period. Modernism is literature and cultural movement which flourished in the first decade of the 20th century. The term describes a set of cultural tendencies and movements, originally arising from wide-scale and far-reaching changes to the Western society. It reflects a sense of cultural crisis, which was both existed and disquieting, in that it opened up a whole new vista of human possibilities. Modernism is marked by experimentation, particularly manipulation of form, and by the realization that knowledge is not absolute. It's a very general term used to talk about a series of different movements and tendencies: Impressionism, Expressionism, Imaginism, Futurism, and Surrealism, that tried to break with old tradition and the realistic concept of art. Some well-known authors that you may know include T.S. Eliot, Ernest Hemingway, Virginia Woolf, and Robert Frost. Now we will move on to the second point, which is about the historical period. Modernism challenged the assumption of reality, which is at the roots of realism, the period before modernism, that there is a common phenomenal world that can be readily described. This is a period of invention and war. Psychoanalysis, Darwinism, Nietzsche, and Marxism questioned traditional assumptions, and so did World War I and the skeptical spirit brought about. They all helped to shatter traditional beliefs. Up until the war, literature became caught up in the spirit of change and invention that was occurring in the world. The desire among writers and artists was to make it new. There was a strong drive to break with the literary tradition and to try forms and ways with written expression. One can also see this drive in visual arts with the post-expressionism and cubism. After the war, the desires to make its new prevails, but with a different tenor. There is a dominant mood of darkness, alienation, and betrayal in the post-war literature, combined with the spirit to break completely with the past and to try to make sense of the world that has become fractured and meaningless. Writers were in a state of shock of the destruction of the war, but they also wanted to use art in order to create meaning in the world, or at least to try to recreate the meaning. Lastly, I will move to the third point, which is about a hero within the modern period. So what is a hero? What is a typical hero? The principal sympathetic character, male or female, known as a heroine, in a literary work. Heroes and heroines typically exhibit admirable traits: idealism, courage, and integrity, for example. During the modernist period, you can see a hero taking more qualities in the form of an anti-hero rather than a typical hero. An anti-hero in literature and film is a central supporting character that has some of the personality flaws and ultimate misfortune of traditionally assigned to villains, but nonetheless also have enough heroic qualities or intentions to gain the sympathy of a reader. Anti-heroes can be awkward, obnoxious, passive, pitiful, or obtuse, but they are always in some fundamental ways a flawed or failed hero. So let's take a closer look at Ernest Hemingway's leading character, Frederick Henry, in A Farewell to Arms. This character's qualities, mainly in the beginning of the book, were not so great. He was a drinker, loved women, selfish at first. But then, as the character developed, he finds a woman he loves, he's a loyal friend, takes a job seriously as an ambulance driver, demonstrates courage when needed, and is pretty much grounded. Frederick Henry is a normal man that eventually takes the qualities of a hero, but at first is that flawed man. In conclusion, in this presentation, my objectives were to define the modernist period and highlight the changes of the period. I covered 3 points. Firstly, reflects a sense of cultural crisis and is marked by experimentation and realization that the knowledge is not absolute. Secondly, we talked about the historical time period, specifically the impact of war in literature. Finally, we discussed change of traditional hero or heroine during this period. I hope you have found this presentation useful, and I thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I will gladly do my best to answer them at this point. Thank you.